Welcome to Containerized Conversations, where we try to containerize our conversation to less than an hour. I'm your host, Jesse Cafarelli.
And I'm your other host, Josh Warhurst, and I can't believe that we're filling up data, right? It's
Yeah,
amazing.
honestly, we started this podcast, and I was like, it's going to be so hard to get any episode above 15 minutes. And here we are trying to trim down an hour-long episodes.
Every single time.
Let's hope our listeners actually like those episodes, but the numbers will talk for themselves.
Yes, yeah. Let's get a short episode in there.
Yeah. Now, Josh, this episode is actually going to be a little bit about one of the 7 habits. I've talked to you a couple of times about the 7 habits, about how I really love that book and how it's changed my life. And I actually think one of the habits in the book you embody really well. And so I want us to have an episode where we just chat and we talk about kind of the things that you do in everyday life that really embody this habit. And now the habit that I'm talking about is essentially considering relationships at work as like piggy banks. And if you think about it as piggy banks, every time you rub somebody the wrong way or do something negatively, you're withdrawing from that relationship. And then every time you do something positive, whether it's big or small, you add to that relationship. And in this book, it kind of explains that it's really important for you to know your balance with all of your coworkers and keep a positive balance, in the piggy bank of their relationship so that you have a more effective time of working with them. And I think a lot of people could agree that if people view you in a more positive light, when it does come time to, maybe yell at them for committing a wrong commit or bringing down production, if they have a positive light, a positive balance with you, and you go withdraw like that, it will be more effective. They will actually listen to you. Versus if you have a negative balance, they're not going to listen to you at all. Now, like I said, you do a fantastic job of this. I think everybody at work who works with you, you have a positive balance with almost everyone. Now, there might be some outliers, but for the most part, you do a really good job of maintaining those relationships. Now, I thought it would be a fantastic episode if we did almost a tip and tricks with Josh Warhurst, where you can talk about some of that stuff that you do. I don't actually think you do it. This might be a first time revelation, me having this conversation with you, because I've never actually said this to you before.
Honestly, I don't think about it, and I certainly don't think about it like a piggy bank, but I think that might be a useful metaphor, and it's given me food for thought. The way that I think about work really generally is that I go to work less for the work and more for the relationships. Now, that might be a weird way of saying it because I do care about the stuff that we're doing, right? I care about the products that we're working on. But at the end of the day, when you work on a project, you're always working with other people. Now, I think there's a lot of programmers who like the idea that I'm working with code. I'm not working with silly humans, But at the end of the day, very few projects are worked on entirely by a single person. Right? They tend to be collaborative. A lot of the stuff in this space and in all spaces ends up being collaborative. And honestly, the way that you deal with other people really generally is that you think of them as potential friends, right?
Okay.
Now,
so this is tip number 1.
Yeah. Imagine that everybody that you work with is somebody that you're going to be friends with in the future.
Your best friend.
Your best friend. Yes. Somebody
potential future best friend.
Yeah. No, PFBF, right?
Yeah.
Potential future best friend.
That's a great tip.
Because I do think that a lot of people will say, that's a bridge I can burn, right? That person has given me nothing, right? I've met a lot of people who the first time I met them, honest to God, I thought they had nothing to teach me, right? But I wanted to keep an open mind and say, hey, you know what? This person probably does have something. And it was on their 5th or 6th time that I interacted with them that I said, oh, this person has incredible knowledge that I was not witnessing the first time. But the fact that I kind of kept going back to them and saying, you know what, this person, there's something there. There's a best friend in there somewhere.
I like that.
And it can be tough because you don't necessarily jive with everybody, right? You'll meet people and they'll rub you the wrong way and they'll almost look like the perfect foil to you in a work environment, right? They have nothing to teach you. They're aggressive. They
Yeah.
don't work well with anybody else. Nobody's given you a positive impression about them before. And then 3 months later, you'll read something that they wrote and you say, you know what? I agree with everything that that person said, and they're a
Hey, okay.
genius.
Okay.
Very few people that I've worked with in my career, I can't think of a single person. There's this one mechanical engineer, but I there, I've met hundreds of people and they've all had interesting stories. They've all had interesting backgrounds. The only caveat to imagine people as your future best friend is that I used to be a teacher, and you don't imagine your pupils as your future best friends, right? I understand from a managerial perspective where you want to maintain some distance because that's actually a better thing for your relationship with other people. Part of the friend relationship is that you're kind of opening yourself up to them and you're saying, hey, withdraw as much as you want from me. I'm here to be a piggy bank to withdraw from, right?
Well, no, I mean, I definitely think it's really important to say friendly doesn't mean friends. And even if you're a manager who thinks you should be at arm's length, you should still be friendly and you should still be depositing. There's just maybe there's other ways to do it besides being friends and buddy buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. When you go to work, it's important ultimately that you're also doing work. But yeah, I think it's important to imagine that everybody really ultimately has value and that they have knowledge that you don't have.
Yeah. So I'll move us to tip 2, because this is another thing you do that actually the 7 Habits does mention as a story. And you do this, and I think it's such a small thing that I think a lot of people who don't work from home could do. And there's probably ways to do it work from home. But when you come into the office, at least for the team members you work with, you will walk around, go to their desk, and say, "Hey, how's it going? How was your night last night?" Right? Or maybe if they're trying to learn a language, you'll speak to them in that language to help them learn. So,
Ohayo gozaimasu.
exactly. It's such a small gesture, but I don't know if people realize how big of a gesture that actually is, right? It's something so simple, but it contributes so much to the piggy bank. So talk about that.
Sure. When going into the office, and it does help, but I will say even Slack messages, right? There's a lot of really quick ways to just kind of check in on people. You do get vibes from people, or at least I get vibes from people pretty quickly about whether or not somebody wants to be interrupted.
Okay. No, that's really important tip. That I'll say
And
that's like 2A or 2B. That's like a sub
yeah,
note.
like I'll go up to somebody and I'll look at them. And now as a junior developer, one of the things that I always had questions for other people. I would go up to all these different people and say, like, man, I want to ask them questions that honestly will take the rest of their day. And my manager at that time, who was a wonderful guy, he said, you know what? If they turn you away, they're busy. If they don't turn you away, they want to talk to you, right? Devil is in the details for some of these, but generally speaking, if you ask a person a question and they say, sure, let me sit down with you and talk to you, then they kind of want to do that, right? It might not be the best thing for them at that moment,
Yeah.
but they want to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I started asking people as much as I could. And I did see that that ended up being true, right? I would ask somebody, hey, can you explain this piece of code to me? And they would say, sure. Or they would say, listen, I'm busy right now. Let me come back later. But I do take that to the greetings, right?
Yeah.
You'll go to somebody on their desk and they have their headphones on. You say, you know what? That person's busy, right?
Yeah.
Or you go over to someone's desk and you just kind of want to ask them a silly question. Like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
The small talk questions. And they look like bored at their desk. Okay, that's somebody I'm going to go talk to. These things don't take a lot of time. They're very quick. They're kind of water cooler conversations. Oftentimes they're between meetings, right?
Yeah.
I'll get in the office at 8:50 and I have a meeting at 9, right? There's 10 minutes. 10 minutes isn't enough time to like really get any work done, but it is a good time to boost those relationships.
I think you have some almost two hot tips in one here. For the junior people, don't be afraid to go bother people. They will turn you away if they have to. And
Yes.
more times than not, they will be more happier to help. And then two, if you're a more senior person, just go around and talk to people. If you have 10 minutes, you're not going to have 10 minutes to work on something. Go boost your relationships. I like those tips. Those are good ones.
I've enamored myself to some senior developers because when I was a junior developer, I asked them lots of questions, and most people love sharing their own advice. And most junior developers like hearing that advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you also said something that even for me, I was like, oh, that's so true. Even if you're a fully remote worker, you can still do this. Just ping people in Slack, or even like in a meeting if the meeting hasn't started yet. There's a couple of minutes you can say something. It doesn't have to be physically there. It might seem obvious, but I mean, it's definitely a good tip.
I do think with the fully remote thing, you have to try a little bit harder. It's really easy to walk around an office.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not like trying to be this Eye of Sauron, like looking over everything.
Are you coding right now? You don't look like you're coding.
You don't look like you're coding. No, I just when you walk around, right? Like I go to grab a coffee and I see somebody at their desk who's like texting on their phone. And I say, you know what? That's somebody who just wants some kind of interaction. It takes practice, right? But with Slack and other tools, it's a little bit harder because you can't really see if somebody is actually in the middle of something and the Slack pop-up would really distract them.
Yeah.
That being said, you can respond to the Slack message on your own time, right? So in general, this was true, especially during COVID, where I would just send somebody a message in the morning. Usually more than a basic question like, good morning, how are you? My general tip with people is, this sounds silly, but treat them a little bit like characters.
Okay.
Right? Like in a TV show. And a lot of characters on a TV show, they'll have like a hobby, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that character, they love chess, right? But the truth is, you talk to a lot of people, you find one defining trait about them, right? You talk to somebody and they say, you know, I'm really into dirt bike racing. The next time you see them, you're like, hey, bought a new dirt bike recently? As long as you can remember one fun trait for every person.
But you can't remember all of this. Like let's say there's 100 people in your office.
I think you can remember it for 100 people. I think you can't remember it for like 200. I think there is a cutoff point, right?
You underestimate my ability to remember things.
But like, I know, for instance, that you brew beer, right? I know, for instance, that you learn languages, that you care about your work. You have a 3D printer. You have a dog, right? Okay, we're friends. I know a lot about you, but for a lot of people, knowing that they have a dog is a big thing, right?
Yeah,
knowing that they
true.
like music, right? I mean, that sounds so basic, but there are some people that really don't care about music. Maybe it's a little bit challenging. I knew somebody who kept a notebook, right? Who had like the list of people's dogs and their names and their children's names and all this kind of stuff in the book. I've forgotten that. Like, I know people have kids and I'm like, how's your son, daughter doing?
Yeah. So
you know?
I'm gonna actually rephrase that because I think it's a really great tip. And what I'll rephrase it as is, everybody in this world has things that matter to them. And a lot of people, it's always different. And it's really important for you to figure out what it is that is important to that other person. And then almost remember it somehow and try to remember it. And then just bring it up casually in other conversations. Because again, I think that is something so small that can mean so much to someone, right? That you just remembered, oh, they care so much about their dog, or like they do crocheting in their after hours. You ask them what they just built. You know, so there are things that matter to people, and figuring out what matters to them and just like casually mentioning it can contribute to this piggy bank that I was just talking about so tremendously. And it's such a small thing for you to do.
It's it's really easy, honestly, at work or when you have the video turned on in like a remote meeting to notice there are things in the background, right? I can talk
Yeah.
about those things. I'm
Yeah.
not giving you much in my background here, but
You like wood ceilings and
I I'm into wood. Uh, but I saw somebody at the lunchroom and they had a coffee cup that they had made, right? They had handmade.
but how did you know they made it?
It looked handmade.
So you noticed a small detail about someone and you were able to infer
I didn't infer. It was just enough off where
that you asked about it.
I said, yeah, yeah, is that handmade? Right? And
That's
again, this is one of those things where I had 3 minutes, right? I had 3 minutes before a meeting, and I said, let's go and ask somebody about something.
But this, Josh, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's so easy for you, but like for me, I don't know if I would even notice that the mug was any different than any other mug in the world.
Oh, this was a different mug. You would notice. You would
I don't
notice.
know. I don't know. I think you underestimate. Okay, so another tip, right? Pay attention. Just see, what are they wearing? Are they wearing a graphic tee that might be a band that they like or
I was walking out of the building today and I
yeah.
asked somebody like, "Oh, hey, that t-shirt that you're wearing, like it mentioned a bar." I was like, "Have you been to that bar?" And they're like, "I got this off of the internet, man."
Okay, so it doesn't work all the time, but
It doesn't, but we ended up talking a little bit after that,
okay.
even though it was just like something, right?
Yeah.
It was something. A lot of people go to weather because it's so obvious,
Yeah.
right? Oh, it's a nice
But it's
day. We can
such a
talk about how nice
boring
it is.
talking point.
But but a lot of these things they're boring, but they get people into it, right?
Okay.
I know there are a lot of people, especially in the tech space, that are like introverts and they don't want to be talking about boring stuff. But I will say the amount of times that boring things becomes something very deep and interesting
Yeah.
is sometimes very quick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You go talk to someone, you say, "Man, yeah, rain sucks today." And they're like, "Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I get like pretty significant depression whenever it rains, but I have this lamp at my home that helps me whenever it's a rainy day like this. And honestly, after buying that lamp, I'm doing wonderful." And now I know this fact that the person has a lamp and that they have some level of seasonal affect disorder. And like, that's something I can bring up. I'm like, "Hey, you still using a lamp? It's like a nice, bright, sunny day today." And they're like, "Didn't need it today. The vitamin
That's
D is
awesome.
doing great."
I'm gonna move us to the next hot tip
Sure.
that I think you do. And I don't know how to put it, but you try to initiate these things like clubs, right? And not just clubs, but also like some sort of meeting where you have talking points about books and articles and things like that. Talk about that a little.
Sure. So at the company, there were a couple of clubs, and this company referred to them as clubs, right? I actually didn't start any of them.
Okay.
So in college, I did start clubs. Like I started a Go club in college.
Yeah.
I helped friends start a competitive sports video games club. There's a whole list of things, but here I helped continue the bagel club, where every week somebody brings in bagels for everybody in the club. And if you eat a bagel, then in the future you join the club and you'll eventually bring the bagels. The company doesn't pay anything. It's a good way to like get people together in the morning and kind of have like a surprise and some fun stuff.
Yeah.
I also did the software article club, like you mentioned, where we would discuss an article that people had found on the internet. Every week they would read it out and then people would discuss it. The grill club, right, where people would just buy meats to grill and veggies and other stuff and in place of lunch. There were quite a few different clubs that over the years I've been a part of.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of these kind of events. It's great that, the mechanical team gets to know the mechanical team and they work really good on mechanical issues together. It's great the electrical team gets to know the electrical team, and when they create reports on different things, they're all in sync. But so many companies have a bad habit of segregating their teams so much. When you make these interdisciplinary teams, like Bagel Club, a lot of people like bagels. Not everybody,
Yeah.
right? But you get people from different backgrounds all in the same room talking about something, right? Software Article Club, like you could say, hey, this is a software organization. There's a lot of software development teams. They should all be able to talk to each other. But honestly, these software teams are working on this project. These software teams are working on that project. And they don't meet. They never
Yeah.
talk to each other.
Yeah.
And a lot of the value of these clubs is bringing in people. Like, I'm sure there's some CEO out there who says, we don't need developers working on anything other than the thing that they're working on. But when I started at Alert,
Yeah.
John Lurt, who founded Alert Innovation,
It's a perfect name, honestly.
it kind of is. He had this big thing about how lunch was a way to bring in people from different teams. And you would go and sit down at lunch and you would sit down with people who you never talked to, and you talk to them inevitably about work.
Yeah.
Right. And 90% of the time you're at work, your stuff comes back to work at the end.
Yeah.
You talk to people and you say, you know what? I've never thought about this from a mechanical perspective before.
Yeah.
I've never thought about this from an electrical perspective before. I've never thought about this from a software perspective before. Like, this to me was a brilliant choice, but how would I go and implement that in software? That's incredibly hard to think about.
Yeah.
Right. And these kind of interdisciplinary organizations are how you achieve that natural way of interacting with people from other parts of the company.
And not only that, but I also think the beauty of like a bagel club is, it naturally happens essentially before people start work. So even if you're at a company where all of the C-suite are like, no, you need to be at your desk, you need to be working, like, this is a club that can kind of happen before work starts, essentially. And so it wouldn't affect the output of your workers. So I feel like there shouldn't be anything against doing something like that. And then same thing with the article club, because it happened at lunchtime. So the idea is that you guys just meet during lunch, to eat and talk about this article.
I also think one of the factors in all these clubs that was really nice is that level of spontaneity.
Yeah.
A lot of work can become a grind where you work on the same problem for 2 weeks straight. You work on the same problem for 3 months straight. And it's not soulless, but it can be crushing, right?
Yeah.
It can be tough working on the same thing. And then you have something like Bagel Club where it's like, where are the bagels going to come from today? Is somebody going to bring a nice spread? Who knows? Software Article Club, like, what article are we going to read today? Is it going to be totally off the rocker? Is it going to be a bad article?
Yeah.
Who knows? Grill Club, what kind of foods are coming today? I don't know. And I think that a lot of these provide that kind of randomness. A lot of people, it's the random elements in the day that make them remember a day. Otherwise, the days just kind of fly by. They end up being the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Especially as you grow older. And so the weird things, the things that come out of left field, that's what lets people feel connected. They remember the day. They remember what happened. And I'll tell you, within things like Bagel Club or Article Club, we've had some real winners. We've had somebody who said, hey, you know what? Forget bagels. I'm going to make omelets for everybody.
Yeah.
We had Grill Club where it's, you know what? We're going to do a whole barbecue today. And people are like, whoa, that was not what I was expecting out of a Thursday.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's like a hidden tip in there, which is the morale of your team or the company. Happier employees means happier output or faster output. And I think that's kind of what happens when you do something like that. Especially if, let's say for the people listening at home, doing something company-wide is probably out of concept. But just doing it even just within your small team, I mean, it could be extremely helpful.
Were you there for the potluck? We did a DevOps potluck, right?
Yeah.
And I'll gotta say that the DevOps team at that time was like one of the most interesting teams that I've ever been a part of. Everybody was from like a different country, right?
Yeah.
Like I was sitting here from America as like the one American. That's not entirely true, but everybody had their own unique thing that they were bringing. It was just a random thing prior to like a Thanksgiving. Everybody brought something that they made. And I gotta say, that event lives in my memory.
Yeah.
It's endeared me to a lot of people who, one of the people turned out to be a great cook, and I never knew.
Yeah. Getting back to the hobby thing that you were
Yeah,
just talking about.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I
It
mean,
all
it's
connects.
really good. And honestly, these are really great tips, I think, for some DevOps people out there who may or may not be super social. I think in our line of work, a lot of times we might upset some people sometimes. Right. And so I do think it's really important as a DevOps engineer to build relationships, some sort of positive relationships with some people, so that when you do some things that might not be super kosher, if you're positive relationship with them, it's less of effect than when they're kind of upset with you.
There are relationships that I've built that I've never really taken out of. Right.
Yeah.
And, for instance, I know this one person really wants to be a Python developer. And we've talked a lot about Python development. And I've never needed anything from this person at work.
Yeah.
And it's fine if you're being truly robotic and strategic.
Yeah.
You do need to realize that not every relationship is going to produce fruitful results, right? Other than being fun.
Yep.
It is fun to talk to this person who has never, quote unquote, given me anything at work. Because that's just not how I think about it. It is very much like, hey, I had 5 minutes. I was going to talk to that person and I got 5 minutes of fun out of it. And that's it.
There's another really hot tip in there. Really, really hot tip. Again, things that come naturally to you. It's for the viewers, I'm going to rephrase it. If it comes off disingenuous in that if the other person feels like you're just trying to get something out of them, no matter what you do, it's not going to come across positive. And so you can't just take these tips we're telling you to try to further your career. You need to be genuinely curious and talk to people. I think that's really important. That's something that you do. You come across very genuine.
There are other times where you do get a lot out of it. You'll talk to somebody and then 6 months later, you're in a meeting with them, right?
Yeah.
For some random reason.
Yeah.
And now they care about you. And we've talked before and that level of like respect. They say, oh, this is a person who's not antagonistic to me, who cares about what I have to say. And like, I didn't realize that conversation that I had 6 months ago with them was going to feed into here. But hey, it happened. It worked out.
That's really good.
And, I've had experiences where somebody comes up and they say, can you help me out with this thing? I say, I'm busy right now. Right. But I'll come back to you in a week, like when I can. Try to remember some of those relationships.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people, if you blow them off once, I guess this is another tip, right? But if you blow them off once, they might still come back to you. If you blow them off like 2 times in a row, they're going to be like, that person's busy. And honestly, giving people help is one of the ways that people feel enamored towards you. I think it goes both ways. Honestly, any kind of connection, whether it's them asking for you or you asking them for help, that relationship gets built either way. If you go to somebody else and you say, can you help me with this thing? That actually does good for your whole relationship with that person. It doesn't have to be you give them things and then that piggy bank fills up. It can be they give you things and that piggy bank fills up, because a lot of people like giving advice. A lot of people like giving tidbits and they feel good about themselves. Yeah. I feel good every time that you've been saying, hey, you do this amazing thing. And I say, oh, really? Okay.
It's my secret plan to build our relationship so that I can be super negative to you in the future.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You've earned it. You've earned it, though, all right?
No. I'm very truthful in what I'm saying. And I think the audience members at home will be able to also see it. And again, some of these tips are in the 7 Habits. So I have talked about it a couple times.
I'll have to read the book. I'll have to read it.
Go read it. But yeah. And some of these tips I learned through the 7 Habits. But again, some of these tips I just learned through watching you do some things too. So.
Well, the fact is at work, people will focus on their job function and they'll say, that's what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
When I go to work, I appear at 9 a.m. to do DevOps. I appear at 9 a.m. to code, or I appear at 9 a.m. to do project management. And the fact is, when you go to work, you're really there as another human being to interact with other human beings and do the other stuff that your main job function is on the side. It honestly is not 100% of your time at work. It's
Yeah.
probably closer to like 30%, right?
Well,
The people
I
element is
argue
big.
it shouldn't be. And I think that's a big thing that we're trying to say. That's your hot tip. Know that as much as you think your job is like 99% coding or 99% troubleshooting technical, you need to understand that there's actually a very human element that if you're missing out on, it's going to make your job just harder to do. It's not impossible, right? But having these positive relationships can make your job a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and I'll say the number of times I've been on a call at like 3 a.m. and the people apologize to me, right?
Yeah.
Like I like that relationship where somebody says, you know what? I'm sorry that I had to call you. Ideally, they don't have to call you because you developed a solution that didn't break.
DevOps.
But if they do call you, you want them to say, I'm sorry for bugging you at 3 a.m., you know.
All right. So there you have it. Josh, I think these tips were honestly really good. Thank you for talking us through a lot of the stuff that naturally comes to you.
I'm sure I've missed something.
Of course. Well, once you read the 7 Habits, you'll realize a lot of the stuff that you missed. So for yourself, as well as the audience members at home, go read that book. It will be an upcoming episode that we'll talk about, so you can get yourself ready.
Sounds good.
But I think that's the end of our containerized conversation. I'm your host, Jesse Cafarelli.
And I'm Josh Warhurst. Have a wonderful night.